Guard your mind. Sexual sin never comes out of the clear blue sky. It's often the result of a long process in which a mind susceptible to sin is granted unguarded exposure to immoral input, or if not unguarded, not sufficiently guarded. So, sometimes we guard ourselves. Like, I never watch that book. I never read that book we were talking about earlier, or watch that movie we were talking about earlier. Sorry to point to you, but this is the Bible. But I would be tempted to go, this one, it's not real. How often have you had the conversation? Have you ever recommended a movie to somebody that you saw an edited version of? Yes. Mm-hmm. That's the worst thing in the world. And then you find out they saw it, and you saw the TV version that had the bad words, cut out of it. Now you can see a lot of things on TV that don't have the bad parts cut out, but you can see, or you watch it on a plane, because those are edited also, and then you recommend the movie, and then they see it, and I've had that happen where somebody's recommended to me, and I go, oh, they didn't see this version of it, forget it. There's no way they would recommend that. But there's an old saying, sow a thought, reap an action, sow an action, reap a habit, sow a habit, reap a character, sow a character, reap a destiny. You see the progressive of where it starts with the thought, and the action that comes out of it, and the habit that comes out of the repeated action. And the repeated habits, the habits of your life, that build your character, and then pretty soon your character that's your destiny. That's how you live your life. That's what your life amounts to. And it all starts with a thought, and cumulatively, numbers of thoughts. So our thoughts are the fabric with which we weave our character and destiny. So that's why we've got to actively fight off thoughts of impurity. And again, like John Piper was saying, with replacing the little flicker of whatever with the conflagration of God's holiness and happiness and righteousness. Philippians 4:8, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Meditate on those things. And it's edifying, it moves your heart. Now, speaking of audio, I listen to scripture on audio almost every day. I also read some days. Some days I just listen to it on audio. But I can be doing something and have scripture audio going on as I'm doing this thing. If I'm cleaning the garage, if I'm doing this or doing that or whatever. If you're doing housework, if you've got somebody listening to scripture and audio, driving, long drives. Oh my word, I have friends that are like salespeople, and they are not usually flying, but they're driving around like the Pacific Northwest, and then maybe every 50, 75, or 100 miles, they're stopping somewhere, and they have an account there, and they're going to do whatever it is. And meanwhile, they're getting a seminary education. They're getting more training than a lot of pastors have had. I know a truck driver who said that he'd been driving truck for 30 years, and he said, I never listened to talk radio, news, sports radio. I listen all to Bibles, sermons, books on audio. And he said, I'm talking not hundreds of hours cumulatively, thousands of hours. And you could see it in this guy. You go, wow, this guy knows his stuff. And I think just taking advantage of the opportunities of life to do that. Because if you listen to, again, talk radio, sports radio, whatever, it's not that those things are bad. Sometimes they are, but it's that, what else could you be doing? What else could you be listening to? And there are people who say, I'd like to study the Bible, but I really don't have time, who are listening to talk radio while they're driving. And well, why don't you listen to the Bible? Listen to solid teaching.